Hi, so today I will be talking about the NaNoWriMo scandal and why I will be NaNo NoMore. So this week has not been great. First, my kids were off school with the dreaded sick bug that's doing the rounds, and then I see on Instagram that NaNoWriMo has been caught in some controversy. So at first I didn't really know what it was about, so I decided that I had to get my kids back to school because now they were better, and I had to get myself back to work. So I thought I'll just look into it later when I've got a bit more free time. I'm sure it's not as bad as it initially seems. So the first stop for my investigation was to visit the NaNoWriMo Forums. This was the alleged scene of the crime, so it seemed like the right place to go first to see if what was being said was true. I'm not somebody who generally uses the NaNoWriMo forums. My main use of the site has always been just to record my Word account and to put a little bit about what project I will be working on for the challenge or whichever challenge I'm taking part in, because there are a few other ones throughout the year, like Camp Nano, where you can choose a target of your own choice. But NaNoWriMo usually takes place in November, so it's National Novel Writing Month. And the big challenge is to write 50,000 words in only 30 days. So I head over to the forums to see if the things that I've seen on social media are actually true, and it turns out the forums have been closed and they have published a statement. So I took some screenshots of the statement so I can share them here with you, and I was going to read through them and share a little bit of my own thoughts on them. To our NaNoWriMo community, the board wishes to explicitly and transparently respond to complaints that have come to our attention over the past 5 days. There is much to answer to, and our goal is to be clear and succinct in our responses. Since several issues have been raised, we will speak to individual issues on discrete threads. We don't want to conflate multiple issues. Okay, so reading that first paragraph tells me that there is something going on. So let's move on to the next paragraph. We'll open this thread by repeating some of the language we sent to those who emailed us directly. The first message we received was on the 11th of July 2023. Since that date, we've received complaints from 11 community members. We responded to most with some version of the following. So they've obviously known about this issue since July of this year, and we're in the middle of November when they're posting this. So I saw this on the Wednesday, the 15th. And it says here it was on the board for 3 days, so 14, 11. So maybe the 11th or the 12th that they posted this on the board for NaNoWriMo members to read. So they said that they've sent to those who raised complaints the following similar wording of this effect. So I'm going to read the third paragraph. First things first, we want to acknowledge the appropriateness of your concerns and your rightful desire to see community leaders take action, advocating for standards that protect the community's most vulnerable members in a noble pursuit. It shows how much you care about the safety of those connected to NaNoWriMo, and we are grateful that you have stepped forward. Thank you for raising your voice. Okay, I'm not sure about the wording. A noble pursuit is a little bit jarring to me, but let's move on and see what else they have to say, because there's a few of these screenshots. So the next part of the same message. The board did not have prior knowledge of the situations that you have brought to our attention. It's not common for boards to be involved in day-to-day operations. However, boards should always be available to field direct concerns. You are among the first to reach out to us directly on any matter, since most of us have been on the board. We take your questions and demands seriously, and we shall share your desire for community safety. So it sounds like they are listening and that they didn't know before, but then they said they knew from July. Did they mean that it was raised first in July and now they've only just come to their attention that this was going on? So anyway, I hopefully it makes sense as we go on. So the next part says, to recap board activity since the 11th of July, the board convened for 60 minutes on the 11th of August to exclusively discuss the first two Hang on. They are based in America. So if we go back, I think they're saying that the first message they received was on the 7th of November. Okay. And then they had a meeting on the 8th of November, which would make much more sense because that's literally one day apart, and it would make sense that if they were taking action, they wouldn't wait months to have a meeting. So on the 8th of November, the board convened for a 60-minute discussion to exclusively discuss the first 2 complaints we received, the only 2 that had reached us by that date. Both were about said moderator and community safety. Prior to our meeting, we sent a list of questions to NaNoWriMo staff and spent part of the meeting hearing from staffers close to the matter. We spent the other part of our meeting in executive sessions discussing the matter without the NaNoWriMo staff present. In the days since, we have fielded additional complaints on various issues and communicated via text, phone, email, Google Meet and Google Docs to discuss. We received more than 120 pages of information to review as attachments from community members who reached out to us with complaints. We also received approximately 50 pages of requested information from NaNoWriMo staff. Okay. So it's quite a lot of information to go through. Based on the seriousness of the complaints, the volume of information the board seeks to review, and the sharp increase in post volume in recent days, we have asked NaNoWriMo staff to temporarily suspend the forums. This was a difficult decision, especially at a time of year when so many of our community members rely on the forums to engage with other writers. However, our priority must be to ensure that the forums can operate safely and to the appropriate standard of moderation. We feel that we must suspend the forums out of an abundance of caution. Well, that makes sense because they've got to take some kind of action, and even though November is the big challenge, that their most famous forum, what started the whole really started off the whole trend of this NaNoWriMo thing. It's all to do with writing a novel in November, and it's something that they started. It is sad that that's the time when it's all come to a head and has to be shut down and closed, and that be the end of the forums. But they need to take action. If what I've heard, which I'm sure we'll get to in this video, is true, then they need to take serious action to protect people. So shutting down the forum does make sense to me because it gives them a chance to take back control of it while they're investigating and seeing how serious or even how true the allegations are, because you don't just instantly believe someone because they said it. But it sounds like they've got a lot of information in their hands, and the first thing they thought was best to do is to shut down the forums and to put a post out. So I guess it's the first time I've ever had to deal with something like this. They're trying their best to respond to it in an appropriate way. So I'm going to continue. So here's what this suspension will look like. Board threads will remain active during the suspension period. Other threads will shut down. Other threads will shut down. Board threads will be highly focused threads designed to address topics one at a time. NaNoWriMo staff will not serve as moderators. Since the board itself will moderate its own threads, we will close commenting for each topic response post after 24 hours. We want to allow responses and questions to creating accountability and make space for community voices, but we also have to be realistic about the fact that the board cannot moderate high-velocity message boards. We all have day jobs, let alone do so indefinitely. We are surfacing now to transparently share our responses and plans at this critical time, but we must make sure we remain in a position to spend time performing our intended role. So I think this is partly where the problem has come from, is that the person in question has had a lot of freedom and authority to interact with teenagers and to moderate the forums without any oversight or without there being any way to stop them. So the board members are obviously very busy with their actual lives that pays their bills. that they haven't been keeping a close eye on it. So they're now trying to take control and tighten everything up to try and control the situation. The last point, questions for the board thread will also be opened and maintained. Unlike the other threads, this one will be maintained indefinitely. Given the aforementioned issues, our day jobs, we ask for the community's understanding and giving us time to answer questions. Okay, that seems reasonable to me, and they're setting the expectations that they might not be available 24/7 to answer questions or to answer quickly, so there might have to be some waiting for responses. Okay, carrying on. For the time being, please bear with us. We will open this thread to questions, but please be aware that we are trying hard to focus our efforts on giving answers about the issues folks have already alerted us to before we take on more. 2 of us are travelling right now, and we are very aware that more of us will have odd schedules week after week due to the holiday. We will open the questions for the board forum after Thanksgiving, after we have had a chance to issue initial responses to community member complaints. In the meantime, please post any urgent questions here, in partnership with the NaNoWriMo board. So I was really upset to hear about this because it is the end of an era. Also, with them controlling the forum and the narrative, I didn't feel like it was the best place to go to get the rest of the information, because there's 2 sides to the story. There's NaNoWriMo's trying to save face and deal with it hopefully in the correct way, and then there's also the people who have raised the complaint who felt that they were silenced right from the start. So I felt like I needed to go somewhere else to find some more information. I didn't want to just rely on what was on the forums because of what had happened. I've never been interested in forums, and now I definitely didn't want to be part of what was going on there. So I then decided to go look on social media, and the first place that I found something interesting to look at was on TikTok. So one of the first posts I came across on TikTok that was quite informative was by an author that goes by the name Emily Beth Shaw, although when I looked up her books that she's published, she goes by the name Beth Shaw. Now, as I'm going to be using some screenshots from her TikTok post, I'm also going to include some information about her books, which I found out on Goodreads. She's a romantasy author, which means it's like fantasy with a little bit of romance, which sounds amazing. Unfortunately, her books are on Kindle Vella, which I don't believe I can get access to in the UK, so I'll just have to look out for when she does appear here. But I am now following her on TikTok, so if she does become available in the UK, I'll hopefully get the news and be able to go check her out, so that's awesome. So what I'm going to do is similar to how I read the statement that was put up on the NaNoWriMo forums. I will also put up a little picture of her TikTok and what it says. So she included some screenshots that she had of discussions on another forum of what had taken place on NaNoWriMo. So I'm going to read them and share my thoughts on what has been said. So I should probably also note that one of the reasons I started taking the screenshots from her TikTok was the fact that I couldn't read fast enough for when they were flashing up on the screen. So this was so I could read them, but then I thought I might as well share them with you too. So the first one was this one. Hello, by request of a large number of Rimos, in case you didn't know, Rimos is what writers of the NaNoWriMo community refer to themselves as. Large request of Rimos who asked for an open discussion about the situation. I'm making a new thread. This is a continuation of the MFCF thread, which I don't know what that is, allowing early access to the same information posted over there. If you've back read that thread, there's nothing new here, just a consolidation overview of recent events. I'm speaking on behalf of a large group of people who have been concerned with safety and culture of the Nano Forums for the past year, and have conducted several community initiatives to try and increase user safety. Our goal is to inform the broader Nano community so they can choose to navigate the event safely and make more informed decisions about participation in the interest of legal protection. I'll be using the term allegedly liberally here. Now, you do have to use the term allegedly because somebody is innocent until proven guilty. So even if you have all the evidence, we're not in a position to say that person is guilty until it's gone through a court of law. So we do have to be careful that we don't. I think that's one of the reasons why the moderator hasn't been named, because we can't say so-and-so is guilty of this because it hasn't yet been proven, even though, as you're going to see through this video, a lot of evidence has been collected and presented. So it's looking like there's a pretty strong case, but that still doesn't mean that they might not be able to somehow prove they're innocent. Maybe it's a big misunderstanding, but in this case, it sounds like there's a lot of information. The next post was this one: who are you? So that's a question, and then they answer it. A long time NaNoWriMo member, but that's not really important. I have a background in large-scale forum moderation, internet safety and security, but I'm merely the one chosen to relay an overview of information we gathered. Next question: what the heck is going on? What happened? And I think that is the question that a lot of people, when they heard something was going on, especially as a lot of us don't get involved in the drama of book talk or anything. We just stay away from that because it's just not, we don't like any of this stuff. So to know that our NaNoWriMo was coming under the spotlight in a negative way was not good for most of us, because it was something that was safe and it was positive, and it was just like, oh no, what has happened? So a lot of us was like, what has happened? So let's get into it. A group of concerned users identified evidence of alleged child exploitation on the NaNoWriMo forums by a now ex-moderator. This moderator allegedly runs a fetish website that allegedly includes content involving minors. They were also the Nano moderator overseeing a group of teenage minors here on the Nano Forums. We uncovered instances where minors were allegedly being lured over to the fetish site, and adults from the fetish site were allegedly invited into Nano's teen threads to interact inappropriately with the teens. This is awful. I would like to think that NaNoWriMo did a background check on this moderator before giving them the keys, before saying, here, have all access to everyone's account, be the moderator, be in charge of teenagers, which although they are young adults, they're still children. They're still, it's just so wrong. And the fact that this person who had a fetish website was able to have access to them is just so wrong on so many levels. And like, did Nano not know that they were into all this stuff? Like, did they not do a background check? Did it not come up? And then it just gets, it's like you read the bullet points and it's getting worse each one. It's like, first they were allegedly child exploitation, then they have a fetish website that includes content of minors. Oh my god. And then they were given authority over teenagers, like to actually be their moderator, and then they were able to give access to other fetish adults who were trying to be inappropriate with these teens. It's just like you read those points, it's just getting worse and worse as you go on. It just makes you feel sick. But I'm going to read more. So here was another screenshot. This is only one of several instances where a Nano moderator has allegedly abused their position to exploit vulnerable minors on the Nano forums, as proven by both PMIR and personal accounts posted on the MFCF thread. So I don't know what PMR is or MFC, so I can't explain that. So then it says, what did you do about it? So in May of 2023, it's been back in May. Sorry, I'll carry on. We sent a report outlining our concerns to Grant and Mariah. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Maria? I don't know. I've never heard their names pronounced. Maria? I don't know. I feel really bad that I don't know their names. So they sent them, including a spreadsheet, links and several screenshots. This was not meant to be irrefutable proof of minor exploitation, but proof that there was a serious concern and a call for them to investigate the matter further, because a nano moderator involved in a minor exploitation would be a very serious concern. Or so we thought. And I have to agree with you. I honestly can't understand how they could have been made aware of that back in May and then didn't do anything. And we're in November and now it's only just coming to light. That's bad. What happened next? Maria confirmed receipt of our PM and told us it was being investigated. Then we waited and waited. A month passed and this individual was still in a moderator position overseeing the miners of the Nano site. Nothing was done. We then realised that the fetish site had been locked down and had begun scrubbing data, meaning someone must have warned the moderator about RPM. Oh, that answer that question upsets me on a few levels. So one, for the victims, so the children that were involved, they can see that they've made their concerns, so they've alerted, they've reported what's happened, and yet this moderator is allowed to carry on as if nothing has happened. They're not in trouble. And it makes it look like their concerns aren't important, that it didn't matter, that this person is above that. I don't know. It's just real, like, really, really bad for the victims who must have been able to see that and felt silenced or ignored. It's not good. And then the fact that the obviously this person was made aware so they could try and get rid of evidence or get rid of the fetish site is quite alarming, because it's almost like they're supporting this person with what they are doing in the background. And I don't understand why they would do that. Why they wouldn't get rid of the person unless they're okay with it. And yeah, it's just making me question their involvement as much as this person that the concerns was raised about now, because of the way they've responded to it. I don't know, just don't like it. So anyway, carrying on. So what did you do after that? This mod had a history of problematic interactions with the miners, even outside the concerns we brought up in the PM. So we built a case to at least have them demodded, to at least get them away from Nano's miners, since HQ didn't seem to be doing anything about it. After massive pressure from the users, this was successful and the individual was removed as a moderator. However, they were not banned from the site and continued to retain their personal account with the same name they'd had while moderator. Even worse, they continued to post in threads with their moderator username and adapted a position of continued authority. Oh my, this is not good at all, is it? Why were they allowed to do that? How is that protecting the users from the person that they've already made you aware of being dangerous? Okay, let's carry on. The next question sounds exactly what's going through my mind. What the heck? Why weren't they banned? Okay, so in the MFCF thread, Mariah told us that she didn't find the allegations we presented as worthy of demodding the user, because if she'd thought she'd seen something concerning, she would have done something about it. Also, she told us that they didn't see the concern about allowing the Xmod to retain their multiple Nano Forum accounts even after being demod. Okay, I'm not sure I quite understand what she was trying to get at there. She's saying that the information she received, that they're okay with the whole grooming of children, that she doesn't see that as a problem with the fetish site with child content on. I don't quite know. I don't know what she received, but it sounded like if it was the stuff that was mentioned at the very beginning, which is what this post sounds like was what was sent to them, those 4 bullet points, which were getting worse and worse and worse, that should have been enough to have this person removed. But Mariah didn't think that was concerning. From the sounds of things, that was her response, which seems very strange. Did Nano staff even investigate the concerns you presented in the PM? We don't know. We keep hearing that something happened, but it apparently didn't ever turn into any perceivable action. We know at least one meeting happened, and Latita sorry if I pronounced your name wrong, and Latita got an email that did not include the screenshots or content of the PM we sent about our concerns, but didn't get to access the screenshots or actual PM. We only figured this out and looped her in a few days ago. So I'm not sure who Latita is, but she sounds like she's someone important in the background, NaNoWriMo, that she didn't feel that she was made aware, didn't have the actual content sent to her that was the original information that raised the concerns back in May. So maybe she only just very, very recently, in November, found out about things. Okay. Did Nano report this to the FBI? We don't know. Thankfully, we filed an FBI report about the site shortly after uncovering it. Not only was this the right thing to do, based on the disturbing content we saw, we had concerns about Nano botching the investigation and tipping them off to scrub the site. As it turns out, our worries were well founded. Yes, I'm glad that they did do their FBI report, because it does sound like they were going to allow this person to cover their tracks, which is not the right thing to do. Because what would happen, even if they got rid of him and allowed him to clean up his mess before he went, that person would just then move on to somewhere else and do the same thing, still targeting children. So surely the first line of action should be to protect the children no matter what. I don't understand why they would tip him off. But obviously somebody had told him if he started scrubbing the site straight after the report was made. So it's good that they then went to the FBI and made them aware so they could investigate, hopefully before any evidence was completely lost. Okay, the next it says, can you link me to the site? No, aside from not wanting anyone else exposed to this content, the former moderator locked the site down so that it's only accessible to members and is actively monitoring traffic. Yeah, I wouldn't want the link to go to that site. It's not the sort of thing I would want to go visit. Yeah. Can I see the screenshots? Not unless you're part of the closed discussion group investigating the issue, which requires vetting and references to ensure the data we collected won't be used maliciously. That's fair enough. I don't really want to see that kind of content anyway. It sounds like it's not nice to look at. So I'm just hoping that what has been raised, these concerns, is now being dealt with appropriately. Okay, so just one last little bit left, and it's an edit at the end of the post saying the only reason this thread is in this forum is because it was being ignored by the admins for the public moderation forum. It sat in a queue for 20 hours. I received no communication about it, so I decided to post it here instead of wait for approval that might never come. Edit 2. This is not a call to action and should not be taken as such, lest we go into mob witch hunt territory. It's for information purposes only, as an overview of events that led up to the information becoming shared with the community in the MFCF thread. Nor is it meant to establish irrefutable proof that the duty was supposed to be up to a Nano HQ during an investigation, and as far as we know, they failed in that prerogative. Edit 3. I'm taking a breather from this conversation, but other users involved are following this thread are available for discussion. I know in my heart that I need to delete NaNoWriMo. It's not been a very easy choice because I've been a member of the site since October of 2010, so that's 13 years of my life that I have been a NaNoWriMo member, and to say goodbye, and after all the time and effort and support I've put into being part of NaNoWriMo, it is really sad to say goodbye. Also, November's never been the best time of year for me to write. I'm really busy that time of year because it seems like everybody in my family is born in November almost, and almost everyone in my husband's family is born in November, so it's a really busy time for birthdays, parties and celebrations. It's the month before Christmas, so there's a lot of getting ready for that, ordering the food, buying the gifts. Also the schools start having like things running up to lead up to Christmas events. And also, now that we have children, it also seems to be the time of year that the kids get sick. For example, this week the kids have had 4 days of school with a sick bug, so that also impacts my time to be able to write. So I am thankful to the NaNoWriMo challenge in November, because even though I've never made it to 50,000 words in November, it has, I'm sure, encouraged me to write more in November than I ordinarily would. I know if the right conditions were met, I could write 50,000 words. My debut novel, Ocean Heart, originally it was called Drift. The first draft, I just wrote it all in a Christmas holiday. So I was off during the last week of December, wrote the whole story. It was about 60,000 words, the first draft. So I did it in a week. So I know I can do it, but it's just like impossible now that I've got so many things to juggle, the children, everything. Job, it just November's not a good time, and also writing that many words in such a short space of time wasn't the best plan, because I did actually end up spending a lot of time editing it. However, that being said, I don't feel like I can carry on with NaNoWriMo and being a part of it with everything that's happened. It's a hard pill to swallow, the truth, but once I accepted it, I was obviously sad to hear about it, but I went on the Right Place, which is a writing community I've recently joined online. I posted on there, they had a little group that was for supporting everyone who's doing NaNoWriMo, so I posted on there about what I'd heard and why I would no longer be posting almost daily updates. I've been like posting there like every other day sort of thing, like how are you getting on, this how I'm getting on. So it was sad to say I wouldn't be doing the updates anymore, and why. And I was a little bit nervous because I know that I care quite deeply for NaNoWriMo, and I didn't want to obviously upset anyone else. But it turned out that the community was really supportive. They pretty much had echoed the same thoughts and feelings that I was having. We suggested that maybe we're going to change the group to a different thing, like challenges or writing goals or something, and then we can still support each other throughout the whole year. It turns out a lot of people don't like writing in November, that November is a very busy time of year for a lot of people. So it's really nice to have challenges at different times of the year, and ones that are more specific to what our needs are and what we actually want to be working on, rather than trying to do a whole novel. When I first started my investigation into what was being said about NaNoWriMo, I did go into it with an open mind, or maybe slightly biased towards NaNoWriMo because of my personal relationship with it always being a very positive one, and I felt quite defensive and wanted to defend the thing that I loved. But at the same time, I feel very strongly about protecting children, and so it's hard to look away when you can see that that's going on. So I'm really glad that someone brought it to my attention, because I wouldn't want to be part of that. I used to work in education for quite a number of years, and within that industry, safeguarding children is of the utmost importance. We'd have training like on how to look out for the signs and how to report them, even the most smallest of things. So because of my background, I don't know if that's why, I'm quite shocked that the type of things that were being raised wasn't taken more seriously immediately. Like, I have heard of people being suspended from their job whilst an investigation is taking place. So that's what I would have expected to happen when the concerns were first raised, not months later, because that person could have caused more harm and hurt more victims in that period of time that it was being left. They were being left to do whatever they wanted. and that is quite upsetting to think that that could have happened, and that in that period of time they could have stopped it because they knew about it. I also worked in the charity sector for a short period of time, and in that sector, again, safeguarding was very important to protect vulnerable people. So with NaNoWriMo being a charity, I would have thought that would be important to them too, but maybe it's different rules in America. Both industries, education and charity work, needed to have a DBS check, which is where they check your criminal background to see if you have one, and specifically if you have one where you have abused somebody and used your power to abuse someone like vulnerable, like maybe a child or somebody that maybe they're of mental decline, something like that, so it makes them more vulnerable. So, and that's what alarms me about the fact this guy was running a fetish website. So if they did a background check, surely that would have come up. Like, did he not mention that he built a website and they didn't think what website have you built? I don't know. I would have thought they would have known. And even if they didn't know that background about him, that he was doing this dodgy stuff on his own, I was going to say offline, but it's not offline, it's on his own site. Even if they didn't know that he was doing that, when the concerns were made to them, when they were made aware of what he was doing, then they really did know. So they knew that since May, and only shut down his account. Well, didn't shut down his account, they just closed the forums in November, in the middle of National Novel Writing Month. They could have had this all dealt with months ago if they had responded immediately. And I find that quite upsetting and shocking, to be frank. I applaud the teenagers involved for having the courage to speak up and report the things that were going on, and the bravery for not giving up, because they'd reported it and then potentially been ignored from the way it looked. There was no updates on how their concerns were being dealt with, and all they could see was the perpetrator was still there. And I think that shows some great character from them, and I'm actually really impressed that they did that. And I hope that they managed to get answers and support, and if this person needs to be charged, which it sounds like it, I hope that it all does work out and that there's no more stress caused to them, because that's really not something that teenagers should be having to deal with. And I know that NaNoWriMo did close the forums in November, and they did put a statement explaining what was going on, even if it was a little bit vague, and that could be partly there to be vague because there is criminal proceedings going on, and perhaps they don't want too much information given in case it turns out this person is innocent, because it's still an investigation, so they're innocent till proven guilty, so it's all allegations at the moment. However, I don't think that it's appropriate that it's took them this long to actually take action. And another point that one of my other author friends mentioned on Instagram was that one of the other things is that the only way they informed members of NaNoWriMo was by putting a pinned post on the forum. Now, a lot of people taking part in the November challenge don't use the forum, they only use the word count log. And if it wasn't for social media, we would not have been aware that we were involved in supporting a group that allow this to go on their forums. And it just does not meet with our morals. So that is quite upsetting that they were going to allow us to blindly carry on without being made aware of what was going on. They could have easily sent us all an email to update us that the forums were being closed and the reason why, because they have all our email addresses. I've been trying to stay calm in this video, but I think that you can hear in my voice that I am not happy about this at all. So yeah, I'm very, very upset about what's happened at NaNoWriMo. I'm hoping that this does get dealt with properly now that the FBI are involved. I'm hoping that the forums weren't used by those people to exploit more children and get more content for their websites. it is, NaNoWriMo has been tainted now because it's now associated with that moderator and that moderator's fetish website. And that is why it's so important for safeguarding, because it helps prevent situations like this. And I'm kind of shocked that such a big organisation as NaNoWriMo hasn't put in place, especially as they even work with schools. So this is really, really upsetting. But I think it's with a heavy heart, but it's time for me to say goodbye to NaNoWriMo. NaNo, no more.